All right, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about building a profitable service desk. It's really a managed service focused solution. Someone asked if I was part of the MBA track, and I guess I am, but really focused on service desk strategies and policies. This is the second time I've done this. First time I did this session was I had about a 5-minute warning. A speaker didn't show up, and they asked me to step in, so I kind of winged it for a while. So I put it into a PowerPoint presentation for you guys today. Hopefully it'll go as smooth. I think it might have gone better winging it because I didn't have an outline I had to worry about. But anyway, before we get going, I wanted to get an idea. Does everybody here have a service desk right now? Or raise your hands if you already have a service desk. Help desk, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, kind of getting away from calling it a help desk these days. More focused on a service desk. I think it's really a really critical component of any reseller at this point, any solution provider, providing that level of, somebody that the customer can call that's not your engineer's cell phone, right? For one thing, it'll free up your engineers so that they can have a life, and also it's something you can turn into something you can make some money at. So. This is all about for-profit. I'm with a company called For-Profit that basically does business coaching for the IT reseller channel. Prior to that, I owned a company called Do IT Smarter out of San Diego. We were a master MSP. I ran that for 11 years. I sold that a couple years ago in September 2010. So I've got a lot of experience with service desk. It was about a third of our business. We had over 750 customers that were using our service desk, from 5 employees to 1,500 employees. So quite the gambit across the board, so 24/7. And what I found during that tenure was that while service desk was something that could be very profitable, it was our least profitable of all the services we did. And the reason being for that is because it's so intensive on people. Right? So what we found is that we had to really create process and documentation and really change the way we thought about how to run a business, really, a professional services group, so that we can turn that service desk into something that can make money. So today I want to talk about what's the goals of a service desk. I hear some people are focused on it because they feel like it's a great revenue opportunity. I talk to other partners that are doing it because they feel like their competitors are doing it, so they're kind of pulled into it, right? And others that are just adding a service desk to increase their customer service, right? Keep their customers happy, okay? And that's really a driving factor, I think, for the larger product sales people. Their primary business is either product sales or professional services. But they're realizing more and more that people are liking to just call up quick, get their answers right away. So they're starting to build out a service desk. When I look at the goals of a service desk, the number one is always, keep the customer happy. All right. Number two is fix their issue. And number three, which is opposite of what you're used to, is fix it quickly, fix it as fast as possible. And that's where we want to start looking at in this conversation today. How do we keep that customer happy, right? Well, first off, we got to have a short wait time. Nobody wants to be on hold. So what that means, though, is if you're going to have a service desk that's going to be open for 10 to 12 hours a day, now you've got to staff that service desk to ensure that the hold time is down, even if you might not be as busy as you want to be. So if you're typically used to having your technical teams, 70, 75, 80, 85% utilized, does that sound right? Yeah? Anybody get more utilization than that? No? A service desk is not going to be that, that high utilization. It's going to be probably 60, 65% utilization at best. And the reason is because you've got that metric there. Well, we got to keep the hold time down. So it might not be that you have enough volume to keep everyone busy, but you have enough calls coming in. right? And if people are stuck on the phone, you can't answer the call, goes into hold queue, goes into voicemail, and you hurt that #1 issue, which is keeping a customer happy, right? So also, you've got to have friendly techs. A lot of your techs that are out in the field right now that are really good at doing what they're doing aren't necessarily going to be great over the phone, so you're going to have different people you're going to have to hire. Customers don't want to have to repeat things, so you have to have a process in place so that when they first tell you the problem, it gets documented, and then that whole case transfers through. I think Level Platforms was over there talking earlier. I'm sure they were talking about the PSA integrations, you know, AutoTask, ConnectWise, all those products. You need a tool like that. As I mentioned earlier, they want the problem fixed. They want it fixed quickly. They don't care if who they talk to knows how to fix the problem or not. They want somebody that can fix the problem and fix it quickly, right? And they also want consistency. So every time they call, they want like the same experience, same look and feel. Right? They don't want to feel like every time they call, then when they get John, you know, John has a whole different process than Betty or Brian or whatever. Everybody needs to look the same, right? And that's really what service desk is you know, how do you create that relationship with your customer? Taking that one-on-one relationship that you're used to having with the sales rep and an engineer and turn it into a one-to-many relationship. Well, again, the only way to create a one-to-many relationship that's consistent is through a consistently trained team, consistent process, right? And ultimately, though, the most important thing is you've got to make it easy, right? Easy, 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 easy. That's what your customers want. They don't want complicated ways of contacting you. They don't want to hear about your complicated SLAs or anything. They just want to be able to know that when they pick up the phone, they're going to get a quick answer. They're going to help them out. It's going to be very easy, right? How many people have like partner portals or customer portals where your customers can log tickets, right? Do you think that's easier for the customer than them emailing you or calling you? No. Right? It's a great marketing pitch because, well, now you got to have it, right? Because everybody else has it. But I can tell you what, we didn't recommend people use it because, you know, it's a lot more difficult. They got to remember a password. They got to log in. They got to know how to submit a ticket. That's not easy. Nobody uses it. Don't put a lot of focus on it, right? So if you have one and if you think otherwise, let me know because I'd love to hear feedback. But that's pretty much what we found. So. So what are we going to do? First off is, you know, with that overriding goal of fixing the issue and doing it quickly, right, we're going to have to build a team. We're going to talk a bit about what it takes to build a service desk team today. We've got to create process, look a little bit of process today. We've got to properly onboard your customers. So this concept of just creating a service desk and telling all your existing clients to just call in and you can support them just as you always have is very, very challenging because now you're taking a support experience that typically would have an engineer with a bit of, I call it tribal knowledge, right? Well, that's the guy that knows about this account. Everybody have those people? I have accounts that are those as well. Nobody else can service that account because Joe's the only person that knows it. Well, one, stop doing that right now because that's dangerous. When Joe leaves, he takes customers, right? That's what I did when I started my business in '99. I left the VAR I was working for. I took their 2 largest accounts because me and my partner were the only guys that knew anything about those customers, right? They were loyal to us, not loyal to the company. So if you got it now, regardless of whether you have a service desk, stop doing that. So onboarding customers is really creating a standard set of documentation, creating a standard way you're going to do business with those customers, getting that tribal knowledge away from your engineers and pulling it into the core of your company, right? It's very, very important. It's one of the very first processes that you're going to create as you build out your service desk, right? Obviously, you got to monitor your success. It's not going to be profitable right out the gate. You're going to have to hire people, or you're going to have your engineering team, subbing on the service desk. And do people have that happening right now, where you have a service desk, but your engineers also have times during the day where they have to answer the phones on the desk? Does anybody have that going on? Yeah, that's a challenge, right? Because how do these guys that are focused on utilization, bill rate, figure it out themselves. How do they all of a sudden shift gear and then sit on a service desk and wait for calls? And then it's very, very challenging, right? And then, monitor and improve, continually improve. I kind of look at all business as you kind of do business in drafts, right? Get your first draft done, get your second draft, get your third draft. You never have a final version, right? When you get a final version, you're done, right? What's the point of owning the business anymore if you've perfected it, right? So let's take a look at what a professional service organization does as far as hiring your team and what your focus is. Because right now, if you don't have a service desk and you're thinking about having one, you likely have a professional service organization. Everybody have one of those? Yeah? Something? Do you know what I'm talking about? Group of engineers? People call it different teams, service team, whatever you call it. But anyway, so they got that same goal, keep the customer happy, right? That's got to be ingrained throughout your whole company. I had a client that had a real problematic engineer, and their one reason for keeping him was, boy, he just really knows how to keep the customers happy. But he didn't do good at anything else. And I thought, well, everybody in your company should be really good at keeping the customers happy, because if they're not, what are they doing in a customer service organization, right? Fixing the issue, that's obviously critical, but it's a little bit different how you fix the issue. You've got somebody out there, they go outside, they go on site, you're billing the customer an hourly rate, typically, right? Unless you're doing a fixed fee project, which is not really fixing issues, you're creating something, building something, right? So when they go out there and they fix it, if it takes an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, it's not a problem. I mean, as long as they don't take 12 hours and are completely incompetent, the customer's not going to complain, right? And that's a good thing, because what happens? Utilization goes up, right? If they go out there at 8 a.m., they don't want to finish up at 10, because what are they going to do from 10 to 12 between when they go out to another client? Nothing. So you might as well stay at that client and milk another hour or two out of them, right? Time is that secondary concern. So you take a look at a typical professional service team. You focus on high-end people, right? Right at the bottom, you got your senior engineers, and that's the most. You've got the most of them, I guess, in the organization, right? If you look at this pyramid here, you've got, say, 5 senior engineers, 2 engineers, and 1 junior guy. And what are they driven to do? That junior guy, what's he driven to do? Move up, right? Become a senior engineer, because the junior guy can only bill $95 an hour and the senior engineer can bill $175. So the whole mindset of the professional service organization is billable time, figure it out yourself, right? Lone Ranger concept. Get out there, you figure it out. If you got to call somebody, you're failing us, because now you're taking somebody else's time. All right, does that sound familiar? I know that's one of my very first job as an engineer. I went from a network admin over to working for a reseller in San Diego. My very first day on the job, they sent me out there to fix an ArcServe issue. I had never heard of ArcServe before, right? But the value I brought to the company was I was smart and I could figure it out myself. And again, if it took me 3 or 4 hours, well, whatever. The customer got the problem fixed, and I was friendly to the customer. I knew how to keep them happy. All right, so that was fine. And if I had to call for support, well, those guys are out of customers too. So they don't want to be bothered by me, because now they're detracting. That customer service is going down for them. So I've really incented on getting out there, figuring it out myself, not being part of a team, being that Lone Ranger. And I think I had that Lone Ranger picture. That's why I got the Lone Ranger picture there, right? Not being part of that team, and really being on my own. And then as a junior guy, I started off as a network technician. Within 2 years there, I was a senior technician, and that was the goal, right? I did training, got ramped up, and before long I was one of the more billable high-end guys there. So that's the culture you want in professional services. That is not the culture you want in a service desk. Okay? So let's take a look at that change of focus. And guess I live in Wisconsin. Managed services, keep the customer happy, fix the issue, different thing is there? We're going to fix it quickly, right? Fixing it quickly, that's the key to profitability right there in a service desk. How do you fix the cases, issues as fast as possible? So when you look at that service desk team, instead of incenting them on utilization, you're going to now turn and incent them on volume, right? How many tickets did you close this month? Was it 100, 200, 300? Whatever volume you can get out of your team, right? That's where you change your focus. So if you change that focus to volume, how do you keep the customers happy when you've got a team that's interested on fixing it and getting them off the phone and going on to the next level, right? That's your real challenge right there. So let's take a look at a managed service team. Typically, you focus on lowering your support costs, right? So you're going to have a lot of level 1 people. These are the technicians. A lot of level 2, the engineers, a little bit less level 2, and very little level 3. Does anybody have a service desk configured like this right now? You are? Yep. You guys? Okay, good. And the idea here is that you put this emphasis on a team versus emphasis on an individual. Okay? And so every level within the service desk is its own team, right? Each level has its own supervisors. And then as they pass through, everybody's basically incented when you look at putting metrics together to mentor and be part of a team. So I go into a lot of organizations that are losing money on their service desk. Right? I have a client that had a goal of hitting 100K in recurring revenue a month because that would cover their costs, right? So by the time they called me, they were at 120, but their costs were now 160, right? Well, what do? They built a service desk that looked like this, right? Because they know how to run a professional service organization. So they've got a lot of high-end people, and they're just relying on talented people versus relying on process, procedure, training, teamwork, right? So this is a typical org chart. If you look at, you've got a director. Now, depending on what size your company, obviously not going to be this large, but support service manager, level 1, level 2. I always do leads. So the goal of a lead is really, they're not a supervisor, but they're somebody that people are, they're the first escalation path, the guy they raise their hand to and say, okay, hey, I'm having a problem. What should I do? Okay? And then you've got these 3 teams. Within the level 3, typically have a couple other specialists, onboarding specialists as you grow and you start to bring on more and more customers. You'll find a need for that. I had 2 dedicated onboarding people, basically project managers, right, for bringing on new clients. Then we had a reporting and analyst specialist. What that is, everybody heard of a quarterly business review? Yeah? So that's actually having a dedicated person to help you with those. I don't know of too many MSPs out there right now even that are truly providing a proactive solution. Right? Does everybody here think managed services is proactive? Right? What's proactive about managed services?
Performing preventive maintenance.
That's it. Yeah, doing something to prevent something from happening, right? Well, a lot of MSPs out there are just reactive, right? So they're selling a proactive service, but they don't have any proactive components. And why not? Well, because they focused on getting everything else going, and that kind of fell by the wayside because, well, we tried to do our quarterly business reviews with our customers, but they didn't really want to do them. They didn't see the point of it. First off, your sales team needs to be educated on how to sell managed services, but also as those clients come around to their renewal terms, and you're not out there doing something proactive, they're going to be looking for something different because they're just getting a reactive solution. They're paying a fixed fee for a reactive solution, and that's not going to excite anybody, right? That's not helping anybody out. All right, so let's take a look at creating process. First thing you need to do is define your service levels. For those guys that have service desks, do you have a SLA defined? All right. That very same client that I told you was running in the red on their service desk, at $120,000 a month in recurring revenue, did not have an SLA in place. The reasoning was because they didn't want the customers to be able to hold them accountable. That's great. I didn't know what to say when he told me that. And so finally I convinced him, look, I don't really care what you want to give to your customers. You need to have a defined service level because that's how you operate your business. You create your service level, and then everything that you do revolves around the SLA, right? Otherwise, you're just winging it all the time. All right, so let's take a look at the processes. And these are the processes I always recommend you create right off the bat. First off is an incident and escalation process. So incident is a case or a ticket or whatever you want to call it. ITIL. Anybody know ITIL? Right? So ITIL calls them incidents. So we were ITIL certified providers, so that's what we use. Incident escalation, we'll kind of walk through one of these in a moment. Change management process. Anybody have a change management process in place right now? Yeah? That's the #1 process. I have to put incident up there first because everybody needs it no matter what. But you can have the best incident process in the world. If you don't have a change management process, you can still just really screw yourself. So basically what change management is making your technicians step back and think before they make a change on your customer's network, right? And if you don't have one now, you'll implement one as soon as one of your techs on a Thursday night after, or Wednesday night after Microsoft Patch Tuesday decides to patch, 10 or 12 of their customers' servers, and there's a problem with that patch, and he brings down, 5 of your customers. You'll definitely get a change management process very quickly after that. So that's a simple process to implement. It's probably one of the most critical. And also it's something you can sell to customers. There was a study came out from IDC years ago that said that large enterprise organizations can reduce their downtime by 70% by implementing a change management process. So think about that. You're going out there, you're selling customers managed services. What are you selling them? Fixed fee, lower costs, reduce your downtime, increase productivity, right? By implementing change management alone and doing nothing else for them. Just saying, look, we're going to put a seal around your network, and we're not going to let any changes happen at all unless it goes through this approval process. You can reduce their downtime by just doing that. All right? Knowledge management process. This ties into the customer onboarding, which is, I think, the next process. Yep. Customer onboarding. Knowledge management is, what do you do with all this knowledge? You got to get rid of the tribal knowledge. You got to pull it out of your engineers' heads. You get it up into a knowledge base, and then you have to track that in an efficient way, right? If you work with any clients, customers that have any compliancy requirements, having a knowledge management process in place is going to be critical. We went through several Sarbanes-Oxley audits, and that was where we would get hit because our knowledge management wasn't tight enough for them. And what that means is if you've got a document that says how to do a particular process within a customer, that document has to have a change management process on it because you can't just have somebody coming in there and changing that process and then screwing up the IT environment, right? So you need a full process about how you deal with the knowledge that you keep for your customers, right? And then again, we talked about that customer onboarding process and how critical that is. And I can show you a little bit about that if we still have time later on here in the presentation. But onboarding process, I would think, is very critical. It's how do we consistently bring on customers so that first 90 days looks and feels the same regardless of who the customer is. And so we don't fall flat on our backs during that first 90 days, right? So if you're selling service desk, you're probably selling an annual contract. I see a lot of people will give the customer sort of an out clause in the first 90 days or first 180 days to allow them to, if the service is just not working, to get out of it. Well, you definitely don't want that happening, right? So create a solid onboarding process around that, okay? And then, again, review and analysis process. That's the last one I have up here, and it's the last one you need to worry about because you need to get all the others done first. And once you get some customers in place, you can start to understand that review and analysis process. I will tell you one thing is when you are pricing and packaging your services, you're looking at licensing costs and you're looking at costs to provide the services. Make sure that you include costs to do that review and analysis because that'll get you, and it got us. Right? We hadn't priced the time it would take to do those quarterly business meetings into our service delivery, so we couldn't hire a dedicated person to do it. And what happened was our non-dedicated people ended up spending, as we grew and grew and grew, ended up spending so much time doing that, and then they do it as an afterthought because they feel it's like a burden as compared to everything else they're doing that's making them money, right? So that quarterly business review, while some people call it a sales call, it's not, all right? You can certainly make money on it. It's proving to them that you're proactive. It's being proactive. It's actually creating that proactive service. So make sure you count for all your time there. So. All right, so I thought I'd just kind of take a look at a quick SLA or service level objectives. I pulled this from Cisco. I do a lot of work with Cisco partners. So Cisco got very specific SLA, how you do it. Typically, when you put together an SLA, you got 4 priorities, or 5 or 6, or 2 or 3, however you want to do it. You identify what those priorities are. Priority 1 is system-wide failure, right? Priority 2 is a departmental failure, typically, or system-wide maybe degradation, but not a failure. Priority 3 is usually an individual, and priority 4 is something that can be fixed, next time you get out there, something scheduled or a project or something like that. And then from there, you've got all these different metrics. And these have become the foundation of how you run your business, right? So when you look at your time to notify, which means from the time we recognize an alert or receive a call, right? Because you're going to have, that portal that nobody uses is one way to come in. You've got email, you've got phone calls. You also have the tools, level platforms, Kaseya, those tools are generating alerts, right? Time to notify, 15 minutes. Well, you got to have a pretty damn good process in place if you're going to guarantee a customer that you're going to call them within 15 minutes no matter what, right? Time to investigate. What does that mean? That means you've notified them that you're aware of it, you've documented the issue, but you haven't necessarily assigned a resource, right? So this is basically a time to assign. All right, let's come in, sit our level 1 service desk. Some people will do a level 1 that's very, kind of just a dispatch almost, right? And then their level 2 is their engineers. I don't really recommend that, but I see that a lot. I recommend level 1 being actual people that can fix the problems. But even if your level 1 can fix the problems, their first priority is, well, we got to make sure we assign these, we got to make sure we notify the customer that we've got it under control, and then they can take ownership. Even if it's a level 1 guy saying, okay, yep, I got it, and then within an hour, they're saying, okay, now I'm going to start working on it, right? The next thing, estimated time to restore. This is something that I've had a lot of conversation with over the years. You definitely don't want to guarantee. See how it says estimated? Everything else is, this is what our time is. But time to restore is not something you want to commit to, right? Does anybody know why? Yeah.
Can't guarantee that.
Everybody knows why, right? Because you can't guarantee you can fix a damn problem, right? So don't guarantee how long it's going to take you to fix it. So, but it's a good thing to put a metric there, even if it's just an internal metric. I use that instance where I told that company, just create one. I don't care if you show your customers. You can choose what to share with your customers up here that you're not. But you should have an estimated time to restore, because that's a metric you can follow. And if something's taking too long, then you can, as long as you're tracking that, that's how you're going to become more efficient, right? If you look at a typical service desk, the majority of the calls of the service desk, really, if it's sold as a service desk, you call us for anything, we fix it. Most of those issues are like a priority 3 or something, right? Because it's individual issues. And tracking that time, if you think about how fast, actually I have that slide at the end, so see, this is why I told you I can wing it better than I can go with the slide. So But we'll go over that. But the idea is that you want to drive that time to restore down, right? That fix it quickly. How do we do that? So if you're not measuring it, you don't have a objective that people are focusing on and working towards, you're never going to be able to drive it down. Okay? And then on-site response. This is a time from when you identify that on-site response is required to when you guarantee to get somebody out there. Okay? So this is not 4 hours from the incident happening. It's 4 hours from when we've investigated it and made sure that we need it on site. So really, at minimum, it would be 5 hours, because if you're guaranteed 1 hour to investigate, so the incident happens, an hour later you're working on it, you work for whatever, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, realize it needs on-site requirement. At that point, that's 4 hours. Okay? And that's something you got to show the customer, because that's something you're going to hang your hat on, right? Well, we'll be out there in 4 hours. If you look at the HP and Cisco and all Dell, all their warranties, they offer what, a 2-hour part replacement, 4-hour part replacement, next business day part replacement, right? That's kind of the same concept here. We guarantee. And it's a value add when you're in that blend where you still have a lot of time and materials customers, and you want to differentiate. That's one of the things you do to differentiate, right? Well, with all of our contract customers, we guarantee we'll be there within 4 hours, versus we'll be there, as soon as we have resources available, right? All right. So this is a process, and I kind of wanted to walk through an actual process. So give me a second. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the screen though. So, oh yeah, it actually works out okay, huh? So I'm going to talk about this is the incident escalation process, right? So if you like making Visio diagrams, this is for you, right? First, right up at the top here, you got, whoop, this pointer doesn't work on Visio, does it? There you go. That should work. No? Okay. The laser pointer is not working. All right. Incident comes in. How's it come in? Like I said, phone, email, portal, or your monitoring tool, right? What do you do first? Can you read this? I don't know if anybody can. Nobody can read it. All right. Well, I'm going to read it for you. So you prioritize the incident, okay? Identify what type of issue. Is it a desktop, server, network, device, whatever that might be, right? Set the priority, identify the priority. You've already got an SLA, so you know how to categorize your priorities, all right? Third thing is, if it's P1, it's a severe impact, emergency to the business, priority 1, that's going to go over and follow a different track. If it's priority 2, it's going to follow a different track. So we'll kind of just look at a priority 1. Yeah, it's priority 1. Sign a process. You've got your notification, all right, time to notify. Call back the customer. Typically with the priority 1, you want to make a phone call back to the customer, let them know, okay, we're working on it. Versus just an email where a priority 3 or 4, you might not require that phone call, right? And this is why you need to document all these processes, because every branch is going to be different. How you treat a priority 1 incident versus a priority 4 is going to be a lot different, right? Start troubleshooting, okay? You've categorized it, you've assigned it to tech, now that tech starts troubleshooting it. And what do? We had a 15-minute check across the board. So at 15 minutes, no matter whether it was a priority 1 or a priority 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever the hell it was, at 15 minutes, if you didn't have a clear path to resolution, meaning you don't know how to fix the problem and you have no idea how to fix the problem, there's no point in spending another 15 minutes or another 45 minutes or another 30 minutes. There's no point at all. Now this is right here. This is the difference between professional service organization, right, and a service desk. right then, you raise your hand and say, hey, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm lost. I need help, right? And what we found was, 15 minutes not so arbitrary. What we found was by 20 minutes, if a customer was on the phone with you, regardless of whether you fix the issue, the customer stat's starting to drop, right? They're losing it. And what's even worse is if that first technician spends 30, 45 minutes on it, right? And then they finally throw in the hat and they escalate, and the guy they escalate fixes it in a minute, right? That is horrible. You don't ever want that to happen because you broke. Something broke. That guy spent way too long, kept that customer on the phone way too long when there was somebody sitting right there that could have fixed the issue for that customer. What's that go back to? Keep the customer happy, fix it, and fix it quickly, right? Build it into your process. Watch your metrics. This is how you can make money out of a service desk, is very, very, very much tightening your team there. Yep?
Do you keep the same 15-minute metric when you're troubleshooting behind the scenes? A client that calls and says, here's the problem, so okay, we'll take care of it. Now, they're not on the phone.
That's right. Yeah, and I do. And the reason why, it's because it's all about not spinning your wheels, right, and escalating to the rest of the team, because it's likely someone in your team could fix it right away. So the idea would be, are you raising your hand, Chris? Okay, all right. So the idea would be, no matter what the issue is, at 15 minutes, it's sort of a reality check. Stop, take a breath. Do you know what you're doing? Do you need help? Right? And you've got a lead. I showed that org chart earlier, right? You've got a lead. Nudge the lead. Hey, I need some help. What do you think? Should I escalate or should I keep working? Right? So, yeah.
Well, how do you get the level 1 guys to become level 2? How do you, if they're throwing stuff over the fence after 15 minutes, how do they learn?
Right. So that's a good question. And the way they learn is that typically you're going to have some sort of regular meeting with the team. A lot of people do a Monday morning meeting or Friday afternoon meeting or whenever, right? So you got a weekly meeting. And what you do is let me show you bring up the PowerPoint, sorry. So when anything gets escalated to that level 2 team, right, the level 2 team's job is to keep the customer happy and fix it quickly, right? So they're going to fix that issue, okay? And at that point, though, I recommend that you put in something in your PSA tool that allows them to flag things that shouldn't have been escalated, maybe. So when I say shouldn't have been, everything should be escalated if the guy that's on the phone first can't fix it, right? But what you do is you build process and documentation around it so that the next time that issue happens, that guy doesn't have to escalate, right? So how do you train him is your question. So that level 2 team will, every time something comes in, yep, I understand why this was escalated. Yes, we have the documentation for it. It was just, this needed to be escalated, right? That's a good thing. No, it shouldn't have been escalated, or it was escalated. A good example would be, this got escalated to our team because only the level 2 team knows how to deal with, this, version of ArcServe or whatever, right? So that level 2 team's going to flag it and say, all right, well, maybe we need to create a knowledge article on it. Maybe we need to create a training document around it, right? And then on a weekly review, those leads are going to review all those flagged incidents, okay? And then they're going to discuss those in that team meeting and go through, okay, we had these 10 that were escalated, all right, 5 of them, we've created new knowledge-based articles, so let's train you on these knowledge-based articles, right? Another 5 of them were, around this topic here. We can't create a knowledge-based article, but we're going to look at getting you guys trained on ArcServe as an example. Does that make sense? Yeah. And once you pull it out, so I've seen customers where they'll alert on that, they think that they need to alert on everything. So 15 minutes, they're like sending out these alerts, and oh, we're not escalating fast enough, or we're escalating too often, right? And the key is really to when you start to build these things out, what can we report on, and then how can we leverage those reports to train our team, right? How can we be proactive within our proactive managed services offering, right? Okay. I don't know if I should go back. Let's go back here. We got 20 minutes, so we should be okay. All right, so at the 15-minute check, all right, so you can see here, the clear path to resolution question was no. So now it's going to kick it up. They're going to escalate second level support, right? So basically every level is going to go through that same process, okay? 15 minutes, can we fix it? Yes, no. Do we need to escalate? It's going to get to level 2. Can we fix it? Yes, no. Escalate. Get to level 3. Well, this guy's got to figure it out, right? Well, those guys are your superstars, so they're the ones that are going to take time and really troubleshoot and figure it out.
Sorry, just to be clear, the 15 minutes is not to actually fix it, but have a plan to fix it.
That's right. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you got a troubleshooting mind, you know what I mean? When you see a problem, you can pretty quickly figure out, okay, I know how to figure this out, right? Versus when you see something and you have no idea. And we saw it a lot on like Outlook. People call in with an Outlook problem, and this is where we'd see, well, so-and-so tried these 12 things and they couldn't fix it, so then they escalated to somebody, and that person fixed it right away. So some of those really basic things, if you don't know, and especially if you're remote controlling a person's desktop, right? Don't just be poking around on their desktop trying to figure something out. So, all right, escalate. Now, another thing to point out is when your Autotask came out with TaskFire. Anybody using Autotask? You guys use TaskFire yet? No? So TaskFire is basically allowing the customer to use your Autotask, right, and kind of be part of your IT. Well, that's a great value prop, and it allows you to get into larger customers, right? So instead of focusing on the customers that don't have an IT department, because you're going to take care of all their IT, if you've got a product like TaskFire, and you've got a very detailed tiered process, very detailed documentation, detailed escalation process, you can go into larger organizations and say, look, we'll be your level 1. You guys can be level 2, level 3. We'll be your level 1, and here's our process. You give them that tool from Autotask. I'm sure ConnectWise has one. I don't know what that one's called, but the products, the PSA guys are getting those. So that's something. By building this structure in place, you're building an efficient outsourced IT help desk, right? So that really allows you to get up the chain, get into larger accounts, right? As I said, I service customers that were 5 employees and 1,000 employees. That's the way we did it. We'd be their help desk or we'd be their level 3.
From your experience, the expectation of that quote-unquote 15 minutes online interactively with a support agent versus an email that they fill out through something like TaskFire and so on, what is the threshold in your experience in terms of not an impactful way as far as the customer is concerned?
Well, it depends on, I guess, the priority of what it is, right?
So what you're saying is a poor experience interactively with a 15-minute thing that did not get solved.
Right.
Is worse than 2 hours or 4 hours or 8 hours waiting for an email or a support person to call back.
No, and that's why you create that. It's why you create this, right? And this is just a real high level of your SLA.
The customer's immediate emergency right away.
That's right.
Yesterday.
Yep, and that's why when you sell the solution, you sell the value of, we're a structured, we know how to run IT departments. That's what we do best, right? The first thing is we have this SLA that really sets expectations, right? So I mentioned this is how you build your business around. From a customer perspective, this is setting expectations, right? Get them on the same page. And I hear you, everybody thinks it's priority 1. And that's a challenge until you get out your, get an SLA. So the best thing to do in this case, in that scenario, would be to create an SLA, get out to your client, start messaging the value of having this in place, right? And get your team to start talking about it, and then slowly move your customers to that sort of a standard, if that makes sense. So, did that answer your question? I don't know, we're a little, not really.
I think if there's an accounting person that parallels today to the SLA, there may not be much. It's one person. It's not impactful to the entire organization, but it is. It's a payroll person that's doing payroll today.
Right.
And they chose to use the TaskFire or whatever ConnectWise
Yep.
is. some queue.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and that's, you know, the portals are hard because if you let the customer classify, that's a challenge.
and they think that that is equal to picking up the phone saying, hey,
Yep.
this is very,
Yep,
I'm only one person, but this is payroll for the whole company.
that's right. And that could become a priority one, right? So there's this whole other complicated metrics that looks at impact and urgency and priority. And impact and urgency create the priority levels, and that's how something like that becomes a P1. So, and I'll give you my contact info if you want. I can send you something like that.
Usually, the C-level executive system goes down. That is a P1.
That's right.
How do you characterize that? Right?
You know, I don't know. I always use the line that we don't treat anybody differently because we provide all of our customers exceptional service. Yeah, I actually resisted ever classifying people as VIPs. And we never had a problem because everybody in the organization understands how you're working and they know that it's going to get properly prioritized and get taken care of. I don't have a better answer for you than that, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And I guess things in Silicon Valley works a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about investigating and what you do. And so that first call, and this kind of ties into the onboarding. And I don't know how much time we have left. What time is it? 3:28. Okay, so we got 10 minutes left. So we're on target, right? So when you look at that concept of getting that, like I said, tribal knowledge up, having a team that can create a standard experience for your customers, having a team of lower level people that can actually troubleshoot issues that they might not have been able to troubleshoot in the past. It really starts with, thinking outward from there, okay? When that case comes in, what's that tech need to know right away, right? Well, they need to know, what the SLA is for that customer. If you have multiple SLAs, you need to know, what does their network look like, right? You need to understand what their servers are, what their passwords are, right? I've got them all listed here, right? Firewalls, everything. They need this sort of a snapshot, right? What it doesn't mean, it ties to this onboarding here, right? If you take a look at what they need from being able to support that customer right away, you've got a customer overview. Here's the customer. Here's what they're doing, right? Networking diagrams. Here's the network. And I got this here. You saw that already, right? Easy. So easy for your customers. You got to make it easy for you. So don't take your level 3 guys that are just as geeky as all hell and have them come up with your documentation plan. Because what's it going to be? It's just going to be a stack of technical BS that nobody cares about, right? Everybody likes to do those the Windows Server audits, that you basically audit the server and it pushes out like this 300-page document. Yeah? Everybody use those? You seen those? Well, they're great for like a deliverable to the customer. Here, look at all this stuff we did, right? But when you got a level 1 guy trying to determine, I don't know, how to reset a password or how to do something or, trying to properly escalate something, you want it to be very, very simple. So we always did 2 swaths of everything, right? I have a network diagram that's basically, blocks with IP address and a function. Here's their AD server. Here's its IP address. Here's what happens if the server fails. Nobody can log in or nobody can get to accounting or whatever it might be. Very, very basic. That way your level 1 team can, within a quick amount of time, can get a good grasp of the network, troubleshoot a bit, and either fix it or pinpoint it so that they can properly escalate. And now that proper escalation is really key because if they're not escalating to level 2, they might be escalating to the customer. They might actually escalate to the carrier, right? Because it's the internet down, so you're going to call Cox up. That's part of you got an agency agreement with them, so you can call the Cox on their behalf or Charter or whatever, Time Warner, whatever company you're using. really high level, then you can get the more detailed levels, and typically where we do that is on the configuration item. So config item is a server, a firewall, network device, whatever that might be. And again, think about, okay, when I look at that config item, if I'm that level 1 or that level 2 guy, what do I need to know? But I probably don't need to know the BIOS level, right? I probably need to know, warranty info. How do I connect to it? What happens when it goes down? If I need to patch it, what's the process look like, right? How do we back the server up? Real high level stuff. Then you can have detail on it for your senior people as well, okay? So like I said, think easy is the key, right? Also, we created this concept of customer knowledge articles. And basically, this goes into that knowledge management, right? You've got a customer, you've got a network diagram, you've got all their systems identified, right? You've got an overview that shows their passwords and their gateways and what backup software they have and what antivirus they're on and yada yada, right? You've got a good overview document that covers all that. But what about the intricacies within them that make them a little different? So what we would do is we would have a standard set of what we call these customer knowledge articles that we would create, which were basically plain text. They were in our knowledge base, right? So it was a searchable article, and we'd have one on infrastructure. And what it would do, it would be an overview of their infrastructure, very short to the point, right? And then it would have a troubleshooting and escalation path. And that troubleshooting and escalation path would tell your team how to troubleshoot those infrastructure components, right? So if you're feeling like, the internet's down and you want to try and troubleshoot that, what are you going to do? You're going to ping this, you're going to ping this, you're going to ping this. If none of those ping, you're going to escalate here, right? And you can go through, email, okay, their Exchange server is this. Here's their Exchange server. See if you can RDP to it. Ping it, RDP to it. Okay, can you open the console? Check the services, right? So kind of think through that. What can I tell my junior guys that they can do so they don't have to escalate? And put that into here. But always have a clear escalation path in there. So you do these 5 steps, here's who you escalate to. And it could be escalate to level 2, or it could be escalate to Jerry, who is the on-site resource for that customer, or escalate to this third party because they handle that database. And that's really how you cover, and I don't even have it listed, but third-party applications, right? Everybody has all these weird apps that they have in-house, right? What we found was that 90% of the issues with those apps typically can be documented pretty quickly and easily. So you create a knowledge article for each of those, right? So you have an application. Oh, this came in. It's Great Plains. I've never heard of Great Plains. I'm a level 1 tech. Never heard of that product before, but I want to at least take my 15 minutes to try and figure out what's wrong. And I do a knowledge search on Great Plains for that customer. It pulls it up. It's got the top 5 requests. Oh yeah, look at that. I know how to do this now because I can follow this process. Or, I can't follow this process and I have to escalate to the third-party company that provides their Great Plains support, right?
Where are you keeping all of this information?
In the knowledge, I guess in a knowledge base in your PSA tool. Autotest is PSA. And I keep saying Autotest because that's what I'm most familiar with. We didn't use that actually, but we use a ITIL-based platform. But yeah, in there. Some people will do it in SharePoint. If you're using Microsoft CRM, it's got integration with SharePoint. It's pretty good. So it's got to be somewhere though that your techs can get to it wherever they are working, right? So if the tech's on site and they can't get to it, and my goal is everything in the PSA, right? Because what happens if it's not in the PSA? It's one extra hop, right? It's another 30 seconds, another minute that they're wasting because they had to go somewhere else, not in the PSA. And when you've got techs doing, my level 1 techs were doing 350, 400 calls a month, right? You got someone doing that many calls, just think if I save them a minute per call, it's 350 minutes per month, right? That's a lot of efficiency right there. So those little things you think, and all those clicks, if you got something that takes 25 clicks, see if you can get it to 12 clicks. You start to see increase, right? Support detail, that was just an overview document. So keep it easy. All right, yeah, this is what I was talking about here. So if you take a look at a service desk that's got 5 technicians, you're at 70% utilization, and you look at how many cases they can close. They're taking an hour and a half a case, and I see a lot of people that are out there doing this, are hour and a half a case, right? You can close maybe 500 cases a month with those 5 techs. If you can drop that, right? Drop it to an hour by 15 minutes, not much. Drop it to an hour. Drop it to 3/4 of an hour. Look at all the volume you can get with just those same 5 people, right? And you can do it, like I just said, 1 minute at a time, right? If you can save those 5 people 15 minutes a day a piece, it's an hour and a quarter you save every single day. That's what, almost a full-time employee, right? A month. So, I mean, quarter of employee, yep. Anyway, that's it. Any questions?
You're real good at this. Why did you decide to sell your business?
You know what? I guess I've been in the channel for a long time, helping we were a master MSP. So what that means was we sold our knock and help desk through a reseller channel. Big part of that was education and helping the partners. And so it got to the point where if I really want to have an impact, I needed to get either outside funding so we could really get to more partners, or I needed to sell it so I can go on and focus on what I really enjoy doing, which is helping partners. So I sold it, and now I'm here helping partners. Yeah.
Do you have, in the escalation process, do you have a document who should be contacting vendors if it's possible? Or if it's needed, should it be level 1? Or should they spend 15 minutes learning as much as they can, growing as much as they can, and that's a level 2 call?
Now, it depends on your structure. I mean, I would typically want a level 1 call on a vendor or whatever, because that's your cheapest cost resource, right? So, and you might even kick it back. You know, if something goes up to level 2, you might kick it back to have level 1 initiate the phone call, and then have them re-escalate if they have to. Yeah. Anybody else?
Are your diagrams available?
Yeah, just
Email?
yeah, just email me. And it's not L. Smith, it's Lane at forprofit.com. So, yep. Oh, done? Yep. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.